Opera usually means classical music at its most extravagant, as in big halls, big ensembles, and elaborate sets. But it can also mean something you can fit inside a black box theater that describes the debut planned later this month by a new ensemble, Enigma Chamber Opera. It's performing a work by Benjamin Britten based on the novella by Henry James, The Turn of the Screw. To tell us about the production is one of the singers, Matt DiBattista. Thank you very much for being with us, Matt.
Sure, my pleasure, Chris.
Matt, we have opera companies in Boston, other cities. What about the mission of this particular company?
So this particular company is the brainchild of our artistic director and stage director, Kirsten Cairns, who's done a lot of things here in Boston over the years and globally. And this, the idea is to have a company that mimics more of a repertory company. So a core group of artists, be it the singers, director, conductor, production folks, designers, etc., who Kirsten can draw from to do chamber works that in a short amount of time with really talented people in order to keep costs down and for the company to be nimble enough to eventually, become multinational. The idea is to be based here in Boston, but then hopefully to do performances of various operas all over the world.
Now, this is an interesting issue because there are a number of these works that fit this description. They might not grab the headlines of a big opera, but these works are not minor things, especially to talk about the Britten work here.
Right, so we're, the inaugural performance will be Britten's Turn of the Screw, and it's a very, it's probably one of the most famous operas in English because of its dramatic content. It's based on the Henry James novella of the same name, Turn of the Screw, which was they called a horror novella, sort of a ghost story about a governess coming to take care of two young children, and the house is being haunted by a former governess who has most likely died at some point, and the valet who might have been responsible for her death, etc. We're not sure. And so in this particular production, actually in the original production, we're never really sure how much of the things that are happening in the opera are real or being imagined by the governess. Is her mind playing tricks on her, et cetera, et cetera. So Kirsten decided to go in a really bold direction and said, what if the entire thing happens in the mind of the governess? What if even the children and the maid and et cetera were all figments of her imagination for whatever reason?
Now, this governess is a parson's daughter. She's probably very repressed, late Victorian. But on the other hand, I see things in here, and I hear the dialogue. I'm hearing hints of things. Wait a minute, is there some sexual abuse that went on before, and this is sort of coming out, and these kids have been traumatized?
This is the idea, and it's never specifically said in the story, in the opera itself, but it's definitely inferred strongly. And so the idea is that most likely Peter Quint, the sort of main villain of the story,
and that's the role you sing.
That's the role that I'll sing. Is most likely had been an abuser. He had the run of the house while the master of the house was away, and so the idea is maybe does the governess or the woman playing the governess, had she had some kind of abuse in her past, and is she realizing these characters who are real people in her life that may have been the abusers and are then sort of pushing the story forward in that direction.
Now, if we can also look in the other direction, he's sort of suspected maybe of doing something with the boy Miles, and going back a few years, you sang that role.
I did. In fact, that was my very first operatic role in 1985 with a small little company called the Company Theater. Back then it was a small company. Now it's a South Shore musical theater company, well established. But and they did Turn of the Screw, and so I sang the boy soprano role back then. And I've wanted to do Peter Quint ever since, because it's a real tour de force role.
Now, when you look at this opera, this is not what you might expect from Verdi or Puccini necessarily. A little more like Berg in the way that things are laid out, and what you get here are these other ways of dramatizing the story, and your role, the way you make your entry and the way you vocally exit. Describe that for viewers.
Yeah, I mean, the idea was that Britten based the entire opera. It's basically a progression of scenes and variations on a 12-note theme that he designs, and so this theme just interweaves through the entire opera, and it keeps coming back and going away and coming back, and some of it's very tonal and some of it's very dissonant, and that's one of the things that I find so fascinating about Benjamin Britten in particular, is he really wedded the two ideas together in a fascinating way. Sometimes it's just terrifying, and sometimes you'll hear nursery rhymes that the children are singing, etc. And my role in particular is just very eerie, very long, melismatic lines, very florid singing, and a lot of notes on one syllable, for example, versus the kids who sing a lot of wordy songs and Latin lesson and all these kinds of things, and a lot of text, whereas the ghosts tend to have long, creepy lines.
We should mention the performances are coming up later this month, so anything we can say about when and where it's going to be happening?
Absolutely. So the performances are on the 17th and 18th of January. So that's an evening performance and a matinee on Saturday. And it's at the Black Box Theater at New England Conservatory, one of their new spaces, the Plimpton Shattuck Black Box Theater, and it's a great little space, and so it'll be an intimate setting. I forget exactly how many seats, maybe 250 or something like that. So the audience will be right there with the action. And feel like they're really kind of part of this story.
So, of course, people can check out the conservatory. They can also check out there's a funding campaign for this too, right?
There is. So we're because it's a fledgling company, we're trying to raise some funds to assure its success. If you go to Indiegogo, INDIE GoGo, and search for Enigma Chamber Opera. You can find it there, or you can just Google the opera company. There's a Facebook page and lots of links and ways to donate. And yeah.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Absolutely. Such pleasure. Thank you.